And welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Monday, February the 17th, 2025, the 48th day of the year and President's Day in the US of A, a federal holiday designated on the third Monday of the month back in 1971, after we celebrated George Washington's birthday on February 22nd, his actual birthday, for nearly 100 years. All federal and most state offices are closed today. There is no mail. Banks are closed, and the stock market's also closed in observance of the holiday. The current president has no scheduled events on his calendar today. He's spending the weekend at home in Florida, where he attended yesterday's Daytona 500 with one of his granddaughters.
What did you guys think about Trump?
Fantastic.
I think a lot of people here to see my president, Donald Trump.
It was so patriotic. It was cool. It was like the whole thing, everything from the Air Force to the president to the national anthem and the color guard. It was awesome.
And yes, there was extreme measures of security. This is what Sheriff Mike Chitwood said about it.
You had TSA, you had the Secret Service, FBI, DEA, Homeland Security, watching Air Force One fly over. And then when it lands, the ground under your feet rumbles.
Trump made his first visit to the 500 back in 2020, which I talked about on Friday. That time, he also served as Grand Marshal of the event and led the traditional pre-race prayer. Yesterday, he released a pre-recorded message on the POTUS X account.
This is your favorite president. I'm a big fan. I am a really big fan of you people that you do this. I don't know, but I just want you to be safe. You're talented people, and you're great people and great Americans. Have a good day. Have a lot of fun, and I'll see you later.
Minutes after Trump circled the track in the Beast, which you can see on my X account at radio_Marino, along with the awesome arrival of Air Force One. Right after that, the rain started, causing a 4-hour delay. William Byron in the Hendricks Motorsports number 24 car eventually won the race. He won last year's race as well. Now back-to-back winner in overtime.
Pretty amazing. So it's I'm just so thankful. I got a great team.
And before we move on to politics, how about the USA-Canada hockey game on Saturday night in Montreal, which technically you could say was political, where Canadians booed our national anthem, which Americans took issue with, resulting in 3 separate fights in the first 9 seconds of the game. And then Team USA beat the Canadians in actual hockey, 3-1, in front of a lot of angry Canadian fans. American Matthew Tkachuk, who took issue with the Canadians booing the national anthem, was the first to drop the gloves literally 1 second into the game. The second fight, a few seconds later, was his brother Brady Tkachuk. Matthew, who plays for the Florida Panthers, is the player that spoke at the White House last week when the Stanley Cup champs visited, thanking President Trump. He is quickly gaining fans around the country, I think it's safe to say. All right, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived in Saudi Arabia ahead of meetings this week, but he was in Israel over the weekend with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as Hamas released 3 hostages, including an American Israeli. This is Newsmax's Sarah Williamson on Wake Up America Weekend Edition.
3 more hostages released by Hamas this morning as part of the latest exchange in the ceasefire hostage deal between Israel and the terror group. In exchange, Israel freeing 369 prisoners later today. The release comes amid fear earlier this week that the current deal may have been in danger of collapsing before the 42-day first stage of the deal would come to an end. Lair Horn, Sagi Dekelhen and Sasha Trufanov were freed this morning, reportedly looking to be in better health than the hostages released this week, although still gaunt. Now, their release has followed what has become standard for the terror group, who now bring out all the hostages on an elaborate stage and get them to speak to the crowd before their release. We're already seeing videos of the hostages reuniting here with their family. Here we see Sagi Dekelhen with his wife and his parents, his father, who Tom and I spoke to only 2 weeks ago.
Sagi Dekelhen is the American Israeli. Israel, as Sarah mentioned, released more than 300 prisoners, many of them extremely dangerous, in exchange for those 3 hostages, which is still a terrible deal in my opinion. If it were my family member, would I want them home at all costs, regardless? Of course I would. But what we went from, when I say we, I mean the agreement, Israel, right, went from releasing 30, it was supposed to be 30 for 1. Now they're releasing like 100 for 1 hostages. And again, many that they're releasing are terrorists and extremely dangerous people. Rubio, who was on CBS Face the Nation yesterday, is now in Saudi Arabia, as I mentioned, ahead of expected talks with Russian officials in an attempt to end the war in Ukraine. President Trump said last week that he may go to Saudi Arabia this week, and said yesterday that he could be meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon. So maybe that's more of an indication that he will be going to Saudi Arabia. This will be a big story throughout the week, especially if the president does go, obviously. Our Greta Van Susteren sat down with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy at that security conference in Munich on Friday.
And I don't see Putin wanting to back off to the lines to 2022. He's certainly not going to go back to 2014. And he doesn't want Ukraine in NATO. So how does this end?
Trump can do it. Trump can do it. And Europe will help him very much if he will allow him. Europeans. I think Trump can do it. He's strong. He can. And he's smart. And I think so that if he will understand, or maybe he understands, but I don't see it. I don't hear it. But maybe it will be, or maybe it's his plan. I don't know. But he can do it. Put in all the sanctions he can, then give us all the things that, that he can. We spoke about it, some preventive, very strong package, and we will not use these missiles. We will not use if Putin will stop the war. And of course, when we speak about the just peace for Ukraine, we understand that we don't have power to push them out from all our territory. Yes, we have to push them out with diplomacy and with our partners, but not to lose. And that's why I think that they have to go, minimum they have to go on the line of full-scale invasion. Otherwise, I think that he needs very much the success. And otherwise, everybody will say that those was the line of Biden and this is the line of Trump. I think that he needs success and we need success. And we trust him. I hope so that he will be on our side.
Interesting comments from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. This is Oklahoma Senator and member of the Armed Services Committee, Mark Wayne Mullen, on ABC This Week yesterday.
We want to have Ukraine and Russia both at the table, and I think the negotiations go better if both sides are looking for a peace deal because they're at a neutral position.
The big takeaway from that conference in Munich was the speech by Vice President J.D. Vance. And for more on that, let's go to Carl Higbie on Frontline.
All right. I have been waiting for this for 4 years, for someone to stand in front of a room full of European leaders, look them in the eye and tell them what they're doing is wrong and that America won't be walked on anymore. We're not your piggy bank. We're not your checkbook. We're not doing your bidding for you. We will operate in our interest and will not ignore others. I have been waiting throughout the last 4 years of the most disastrous administration in foreign policy for the speech that J.D. Vance gave today in Munich that said, globalism is dead.
In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town. And under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
He gave a 20-minute speech where he pointed out all the things that Europe has tried to avoid hearing from their electorate for the last 10 years. He said things that Europe has been basically jailing people for speaking out about. Illegal and mass migration, asylum seekers and refugees, ruining their safety, their country, and their culture. J.D. Vance looked them right in the eye and handed them that harsh reality, the reality that, through fear of jail, the same people in the room have forced their citizens not to say the obvious.
We know this situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade. We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. An asylum seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community. How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction?
Thank you. The best part, though, was their faces. Almost no applause, by the way. The scorns and the pompous look. How dare this man give us the brutal, honest truth? That was the highlight of my year. He went on to ask, how did it happen? How did the people who, alongside us, by the way, who won the Cold War, go on to become the very thing, the very big tyrannical government anti-freedom machine that Europe fought to defeat?
They lost because they neither valued nor respected all of the extraordinary blessings of liberty. The freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, to build. As it turns out, you can't mandate innovation or creativity, just as you can't force people what to think, what to feel, or what to believe. And we believe those things are certainly connected. And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners.
And there were no applause from that. From that room. Look, I was howling. I think many people in Europe who were watching it were probably happy as all get out, too, because J.D. Vance said what they couldn't. The people of Europe, for the most part, are so tired of this. Like, I watched as the camera panned out, and you saw their faces too. The smirks of these people with their disdain. It was even disbelief. But some of them started to realize that they were, in fact, doing what they were being called out for. And J.D. Vance came with the receipts.
I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action.
Europe. Look, this is what Vance was trying to call out. Europe is a real-life example of what happened in the movie Demolition Man.
Look, you can't take away people's right to be.
Yeah. Vance didn't stop there, though. He called them out for their tyrannical attacks on religion.
2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes.
This is the second in command of the greatest country in the world. This is why, when I tell you that America is freedom's last chance, it is. Look, we dodged a bullet in November by electing Trump. Because you can see from this speech, if this administration did not win, there is no free state to flee to. This is the message the world needs to get through their heads, that the ones suppressing thought, the ones suppressing innovation and freedom, they have never been the good guys. And somewhere between winning World War II, the Cold War, and now, Europe forgot that in an attempt to be this like leashed utopia of elitist ideologues. And J.D. Vance just shattered their glass house.
Newsmax's Carl Higbie is the host of Frontline Afternoons at 5 p.m. Eastern. Back at the beginning of that clip, Vice President Vance talked about the dangers of open border policies and mentioned the day before he was there was a terror attack in Munich. Many in the crowd, as Carl said, didn't like what Vance said, even though a 2-year-old girl and her mother had just been killed the day before by an illegal migrant. The following day, a Syrian migrant committed a terror attack in Austria that killed a 14-year-old boy. Of course, a lot of Democrats didn't like what the vice president had to say either, and their opposition to Elon Musk continues to be the top talking point from the left.
No one has any idea what Elon Musk is doing. The president doesn't know, congressional Republicans don't know, and Elon Musk is a walking conflict of interest. He has $13 billion of his own government contracts. He had 32 at least investigations from 11 different federal agencies into him and his companies.
That's New York Congressman Dan Goldman. And by the way, most of the contracts that were given to Elon Musk's companies were given by President Biden or even President Obama. Our Mike Carter spoke with Texas Republican Representative Beth Van Duyne, who's a member of the House DOJ subcommittee.
Tell us, did anyone land a blow on the integrity of DOJ this week?
I don't think so. I think it was actually an embarrassment for the Democrats. I mean, again, you've got House Republicans that are going after this waste, fraud, and abuse and trying to figure out how to uncover it, how to stop it. You know, when Marjorie Taylor Greene mentions we've got over a $36 trillion debt, we have to stop it. And yet the only thing that you heard from Democrats were not about the debt, not about the waste, not about the fraud and the obvious abuse, but only complaining about Elon Musk and how young his brilliant engineers are. These are people who in the last several weeks have uncovered so much waste, so much abuse. I mean, we're talking about those witnesses that they really should have paid attention to, they really should have asked questions from. We're talking about simple solutions, such as a simple identification verification process, that if you just ID'd and you just verify people's ID, how that could stop nearly $1 trillion in abuse and wasted spending. Just by that, why were they not jumping on top of that? Why were they not looking at the fact that we've got countries that are taking advantage of our weak system, countries like North Korea and China and Russia that are stealing our benefits from our American citizens? They weren't outraged by that. The only thing they wanted to concentrate on was Elon Musk, and Elon Musk being unelected. You're not looking at all of these other actors, all these other bureaucrats that are unelected. They just wanted to shoot the messenger, and they refused to listen to the message. And you got to ask why. Is it because they and their cronies and their donors and their friends have been benefiting from these slush funds? You just got to ask the question why.
That is absolutely the question you need to ask. Why? As I've been saying all along, why are Democrats so up in arms? Is it because they are guilty of something? Are they all individually afraid of what Elon Musk may find out about them? Or is it the party collectively? You know, they're worried collectively about things the party has done? Or is it just because Musk is working for and with Donald Trump? Nobody had a problem with President Obama setting up a committee to cut government waste. I forget what he called it, but it was essentially the same thing. Or even Bill Clinton. Clinton did the same thing. So why is it such an issue now? Doge derangement syndrome. Cuts from the IRS, the government employee buyouts, and everything and anything else related to Doge will continue to make headlines this week, along with the meetings in Saudi Arabia and any more executive orders that President Trump may sign. All right, be sure you keep up with all of it and breaking developments throughout the day, each and every day on Newsmax, N2, and Newsmax.com. It all begins each and every morning with Wake Up America, followed by National Report, Bianca De La Garza, American Agenda, Carl Higbie on Frontline, Greta Van Susteren, Rob Schmidt tonight, Finnerty, Greg Kelly reports, Chris Plant, and the Right Squad, and much more, with expert analysis from people like political analyst Mark Halpern, Judge Napolitano, Senator Rick Santorum, retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt, and many, many others. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for checking out the Newsmax Daily. Continue to share it with friends, family, and anybody else, whether you like it or not. Just pass it on. By the way, today is my son Daniel's 25th birthday, so it is a big day for us here in the Marino house. And for those that know me personally, know my family personally, I know you're thinking there's no way that little kid is 25 years old. Yes, time flies, my friends, so make the most of it. Don't sweat the small stuff, as they say. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.